Hello, going to be doing a quick video here on how I installed the sport bars that are available through the ninja650shop.com for the 2012 through 2015 Ninja 650s. Now I'm going to be basically going over the steps I took to install it and how my method differs from the actual instructions that they provide, because there is a PDF available on their sites which break down the steps to install them. I am going to provide a link to that in the description, but use my installation video as a reference while using those instructions at the same time. So just to get started, I'm going to tell you right off the bat what I needed to get the job done, which right off already differs from what they list as the tools that you're going to be needing. Now, before getting started on this task, I highly recommend you go out and you buy yourself a new pair of grips. Try not to use the stock ones. They're not very comfortable. I don't find the stock grips to be very good, but it's all personal preference. What I ended up going with initially were the Pro Grip 719s last year, and this year I wanted to switch it up, so I went with the Pro Grip 731s. I went ahead and printed out the instructions that are listed on their site for the installation of the sport bars, which I'll show you guys right here. So I printed that out just to use as a reference because the steps that I took differ slightly from the steps that they list out, and I'll be comparing the two and going over basically how I did it. What they recommend, or what they say the tools required would be a 10mm socket, a 4mm Allen bit socket, a 5 and 8 Allen wrench, a Phillips screwdriver, and a blue Loctite. What I actually ended up using was a Phillips screwdriver. You got your socket wrench, 5 and a 6 Allen, some blue Loctite, and if you're going to be flipping your banjo bolt, you're also going to need a 12mm wrench. But I'm not going to be covering the steps for the actual flipping of the banjo bolt. That is a separate video altogether. Essentially, I recommend bleeding your brakes to perform that. So I will be uploading a brake bleeding video, and what I recommend you do is flip the bolt at that time when you're actually going to do your whole system. They recommend, their step one rather, they say using a 10mm socket and ratchet, remove the 4 bolts that fasten your handlebar clamp to the top triple tree and set the handlebar clamp and bolts aside. Now that step you can completely omit. What I recommend doing is right off the bat is leaving your handlebars completely attached. Do not loosen the 4 bolts that are on them, and they're actually a 6mm Allen to remove this clamp right here. So I'm not sure what they're referring to when they recommended using a 10mm, but like I said, the way I did it differs slightly from their instructions. So first of all, leave your handlebars completely attached by this clamp, because if you remove it, you're going to have a difficult time taking off the rest of the stuff without these moving all over the place while you're trying to work. So leave that attached, and what I recommend doing first is right here. There's step 2, which is remove the stock bar ends using a 6mm Allen wrench. What they're referring to is you take your 6mm here, and you have your bar ends, and you just put that in there, use your socket wrench, loosen them, take them off. What that'll do is it'll leave you with the bar exposed and allow you to slide everything off. So once you remove your bar ends, it then recommends using a Phillips head screwdriver to loosen the 2 screws on the back of your kill switch. And it does specify here, do not fully remove the screws as your throttle lines may disconnect, making it much more difficult to put back on. So what they mean by that is you're going to take your Phillips, just going to go over here. You have your kill switch housing. Behind it, you have 2 Phillips screws holding that housing together. What you're going to do is you're going to loosen these 2 screws a little bit at a time until you're able to separate it along this line just enough for the pin that's inserted in your handlebar to keep it from moving around, to make sure that it clears that distance. So as soon as you're able to move that freely back and forth, stop loosening. That's it. That's all you need, is just enough free play to do that. Just to show everyone real quick, that is the pinhole that they're referring to. After that, this is a step I actually skipped. They recommend disconnecting both the positive and negative wires running from your kill switch cluster to your front brake light switch. What I did was I didn't do that. So what I recommend for that step, just to make your lives a bit easier, is to then remove, not even remove, you just have to loosen these 2 Allen bolts right here. They're the 5s. Oh, I just went to grab it, sorry. They're the 5mm right here. So you're just going to loosen those as well. So loosen this enough to clear the pinhole, loosen the two Allen bolts here, and then what I ended up doing was I ended up sliding them off together. So as opposed to disconnecting the wiring underneath, which is just to me is an unnecessary step, if you loosen these two sections, you can actually remove them all as one piece and save yourself a huge headache. And you don't even have to remove your stock bar here, your stock grip. You can actually leave that attached because it comes off with the throttle housing. So the next step they list here, step 5, once the screws are loosened enough for the pin on the inside of your kill switch housing not to engage in the locator hole, to slide off your entire housing and throttle tube. This is another step here where I differ from the instructions. What I recommend you do is, for now, hold off on step 5. What I recommend you do, and 6 in fact for that matter, is I recommend you skip on to step 7, which is remove the two bolts located on the back of your horn button housing, which are okay to remove completely. As well as step 8, which is remove the back plate from your clutch lever perch and lay both the horn button housing and clutch lever to the side of your bike. So that's what I did next. So after loosening the brake reservoir housing and the kill switch housing, I then proceeded to remove the two screws, which are again Phillips, on the back of your horn housing here. There's one right there, one right here. You can remove this completely to take off the whole assembly in one piece. You can do the same for your clutch lever, which is just held on by the two 5mm Allen bolts. So again, remove these two, remove the two in the back, take them off completely, put them aside. At that point, I recommend you take out the 4 bolts that are holding your handlebars on. So these 4 bolts right here, they clamp around. You remove that, take it off. At this point, that leaves your stock handlebars free. And from there, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be sliding off together your brake fluid housing as well as the kill switch housing right there. And you're going to slide that off in one piece. If you leave this bar attached, you won't have enough wiring clearance to take it all the way off. So you're going to have to take it off regardless and then pull it out as you're sliding off the rest. And that'll leave those hanging to the side free. Now at that point, you have your choice. You can either fight with the stock grip and try and remove it off of your left side in one piece to reuse on your now new sport bars that you're going to be installing, or you can you can buy new grips, cut off your throttle grip, and then reinstall your new grip. My method for installing grips is using some hairspray, and to remove them, typically I'll use an air compressor. So for the new bars, you're going to be using their new hardware, so you don't need to reuse the 4 bolts that came initially with your stock handlebars. You can set those aside, put them away, because you're not going to be reusing them. The sport bars themselves actually come in 4 pieces. You have your main housing, which holds the bars, as well as a spacer underneath for clearance. So you're going to be installing that. It's keyed, right? You see the shape, so it's pretty much impossible to install it the wrong way. So no worries there. But basically you're going to be putting it face down, so the empty side is facing down. You have your spacer. You're then going to be installing, or putting on rather, the sport bars clamp, which you feed your bars into, and you're going to install it with their hardware essentially, which is again going to be a 6. Which is then going to be a 6mm for the clamp itself, and it's going to be a 5mm for the clamps that hold the bars. Once your spacer and your main housing is installed, you are then going to be taking your bars, which are right here as you can see, and you're going to be feeding them through up until here. You may need to loosen these two bolts, as I mentioned, the 5mm, just in case they're already installed. I don't believe they came pre-installed, so don't worry about it. And you're going to be, before sliding this into the housing, you're going to be reinstalling your hardware. These sport bars also come with the hole pre-drilled, so no worries there. That locator hole is always going to be there, so it'll just key in the same place. So then you're going to slide in the brake fluid housing, your kill switch housing, onto the bar, and then insert it into this clamp right here, and tighten down with these two 5mm just to keep it from sliding out. Once that's installed, you're going to want to make sure you find the locator hole for your kill switch housing, get it keyed in there, and then tighten it back up with those 2 Phillips screws that you had loosened initially. You're also going to want to tighten these guys back up, which is another 5 mil. You can actually play with this. The brake fluid housing can be angled to your liking, as well as your lever. So this one is adjustable. The only thing that has to go in a specific way is your kill switch housing, because it's keyed. But yeah, this you can angle, change around. I recommend trying to keep this as straight as possible for the purposes of changing your fluid. You know, you don't want it angled crazy rather. So at that point, it's your own personal preference. So once you clamp this one down, you can then, and you install your new grips or whatever you guys are going to do for the grips, you can then put back on your stock bar end or your aftermarket bar end, whatever you prefer, and then move on to the clutch side, which again, super simple. Same deal, you're going to be sliding on your clutch lever as well as your horn housing, which again is going to be keyed with the hole, so you're going to want to make sure you insert that properly, and then tighten it down with the 2 Phillips on the back again. Then of course tighten down. You can angle, same deal as with the brake lever, you can adjust your clutch lever so that it's in a comfortable position basically. So you're going to tighten it down with those 5 mil Allen bolts right there. Once that's done, you can then slide on your new grip, or if you made the effort and took off your stock grips and you're dead set on reusing them, go ahead and slide that sucker back on. Again, I recommend using hairspray. It makes it a lot easier, and as you can see, once that hairspray dries, it's as good as glue. I mean, this is not moving. You shouldn't be twisting on it anyways, it's not your throttle. And once that's back on, you can then insert your bar end, and it's done. It's a very simple procedure. Sometimes the instructions make it look a little more daunting than it actually is, but it shouldn't take you too long. If you're worried, take your time. Be careful not to strip the bolts, especially the Phillips head, because they're not too strong. I kind of bent them a little, not bent them, but stripped them a little, trying to loosen and reinsert them. So just be careful with the amount of torque you put on them. Make sure you use the appropriate size Phillips so that you don't strip it. You know, you want to minimize that chance as much as possible. But that's it. I mean, that's how you pretty much install the sport bars. It doesn't take too long. Shouldn't take you more than 30 minutes to an hour tops, and that's if you really take your time. I hope this video helped you out. If you do have any questions and you want to know something or a little more, please feel free to ask them in the comments below. But if this video did help you out in installing these bars, you know, feel free to toss this video a thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe to my channel. And as always, thanks for watching.